Big pleasure to introduce Mr. Maxim Gurvits from Netherlands. Entrepreneurs first, seriously. Who said that? Of course, our guest. So I don't talk a lot. Just Max say everything about it.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. So yeah, from Netherlands, right? It's always very hard when people ask me where I'm from. I was born in the Soviet Union. I grew up in the Netherlands in the United States. I've been living in Bulgaria for the last couple of years. So when they ask you where you're from, it's I feel kind of at home everywhere. They told me this is the investment track, right? So they asked me to open the investment track for today. And as someone who has now a couple of years of investment experience in the early stage in Eastern Europe, someone who has built a startup business before that, you very often get asked the question, what kind of ideas do you invest in, right? What kind of projects do you invest in? What kind of companies do you invest in? But here's the thing: early stage startup investors invest in entrepreneurs, not in ideas, not in people, not in projects. And I'm going to use this period, and also as opening to the whole investment track, to talk a little bit about this thing. Who knows which movie this is from? Who recognized it? Wolf of Wall. Oh, there you go. You watch movies. Very good. I also like watching movies. So this is me, not the best photo of myself. Couldn't find a better one. As I already told you, quite accidentally, I rolled into startups. In 2008, 2009, we launched an online legal services company in the Netherlands together with my business partner, a friend from university. Long story, we were sharing an apartment, we got bored, we had very high bills, and then we were looking for ways to lower the bills, and we found some loopholes in the law in Holland. And then we made a website out of it. More people started coming to us, and that actually became a business that sort of did well. It was something like, if you know the market, LegalZoom or Rocket Lawyer for the Dutch market. We sold that in 2011. That's when I moved to Bulgaria, started investing. We set up a seed fund and an accelerator with EU money called Eleven Startup Accelerator. Then I did a number of angel investments. I'm still involved sort of with 11, and right now we're working on a new fund, which is going to be called CCC Startups. That's what the logo stands for. And we're going to be investing early stage seed capital all over Eastern Europe. It's going to be private money, no government money, no bullshit, real stuff. So that's me. Follow me on Twitter. That's important, because then I get clout scores. Now, the question is, of course, why would you want to be an investor, right? Why in the world would you actually want to do this kind of work? There are good reasons, there are bad reasons. First, let's look at the objective, right? The objective economic business rationale of investing early stage. Vitaly Golem just walked into the room. These are his slides, so I'm giving credit. This is my partner, Vitaly. Don't get in trouble afterwards. The reasons are very simple. It makes a lot of economic sense. It's a very risky game, but if you play it well, on average, you have more chance of making money investing in Europe rather than globally, which means very often the United States. Exits are smaller, entry valuations are lower, but exit valuations are the same. I'm sorry, they're not the same, they're slightly lower, but the entry valuations are much lower, which means that on average you gain more as an investor when you invest in the region. We don't have that many exits, but for the exit that we use much less money in Europe, right? So these are European numbers. And on average, you get, as an investor, a much higher return. So, when you meet investors that are doing stuff in Europe, this is the kind of logic, the kind of reasons that it makes them do it. And it's growing, right? And you probably notice that as people who are in the startup ecosystem, there's more and more and more investments. However, those are the objective reasons. Those are the things that you would put on a deck. Those are the things that people would say formally. But what are the real reasons for people to do it? There are basically two kinds of investors. Everywhere in the world, especially in our region, you have the guy who was a corporate person, was a banker, an investment banker, and then suddenly startups are the cool next thing. Here in Poland, you probably know private equity was a big thing 10, 20 years ago. It's on the decline. There are people that are working there, and they need to go, they need to do new things. They have investment experience. So they become startup investors. There are people that did well in corporations, and that are moving on from very often to angel investment. Sometimes they also do VC fund. I know here in Eastern Europe, there are a number of for instance, in Lithuania, I think also in Poland, there's one or two examples of people that had leading corporate positions that have then raised a venture capital fund. And then, of course, the other type is the person that actually built a business and sold it, right? So those are the two kind of people you see in investments, and very often it's important to know which one you're dealing with, and I'll tell you why. The real trick is, and this is something important to understand, that no one has really actually made a lot of money investing in startups in Eastern Europe. So these numbers that we were looking at a short while ago, these are numbers for Europe in general, right? These are European numbers, aggregated. If we look at the Central Eastern Europe, actually don't have much numbers because we have very, very little activity. There are a couple of big exits that have happened. There are literally 3 or 4. For instance, in the country where I live, in Bulgaria, we had a Bulgarian company that was just acquired for $260 million, which I think made it the biggest tech product exit in Eastern Europe. But it's still very little, right? So we have very little numbers to show for it. The fact is that this kind of people make money investing in Europe. We don't have that many investors that have actually made money yet. So if it's not for the money, because there's no proven way, why do we actually do it? What is our motivation? First, it's very good to understand where the money comes from, right? So in Europe, and specifically in Eastern Europe, most of the money is government-backed. So most of the money either comes directly from government or it's matched by the government. When you're talking to investors, it's still very much a public operation, right? And as you probably know, the legal framework is that the governments are not allowed to invest in businesses. So these are all special programs that allow governments to invest in businesses. It's a very, very early stage thing. It all wouldn't exist without the government. This basically means that we have a bunch of pretty inexperienced investors investing government money. Is that a good thing? Not a good thing. It's probably a good thing, but it's hard. There are basically two things that you can do as an investor, right? So if you're an investor, and if you guys are entrepreneurs, startup founders, when you're looking at investors, the right thing to do is to figure out in which of the 2 categories they fall. There is the category of people that just do it for the management fee, because that's the only rational, real remuneration that you're going to get. When you raise the fund, there's a management fee. You can pay yourself a salary, right? So people do it for that. As we already saw, making money out of investments is in Eastern Europe. It's so hard. There's so little people that actually have done it that it's practically it's not logical to expect that to happen. But the management fee is there, so there are people who do this. But at the same time, the real value. This is why I'm in this business, and why a lot of other very good people are in this business, is because you actually want to create a place for future value. This is, if you don't know, this is Stanford University. This is a photo, apparently, hopefully it's real, of the day that it opened in the late 19th century. Back then it was just a very, very small elite college for men. Right now, it developed into a major, major powerhouse for that yielded, great entrepreneurs that has created a lot of companies. So Mr. Stanford, who was setting up this whole thing, probably had a very good vision, but it resulted in something much bigger than what it was on that day when it opened. And this is kind of, the very, very early stage, this very, very early moment in which we are in Europe. So it's very exciting, but the real gains are really far away. Now, if we want to do these, if we want to do this, there are 4 things, four very simple things we got to keep in mind. It's something that I remind myself to do every day. And the people that are, starting to win at this game, this is what they do. First, we got to help educate the community, right? One of the cornerstone problem for technology companies. I don't know how many of you were pitching or were present in the pitching this morning, in the big room. Many of you, right? So the feedback that you see from the judges to many of those pitches, right, is that how's the business part going to work? Where's the distribution model? Where's, how are you going to monetize this? Have you thought about, do you have a product? What, most of the judges said, okay, nice slides. Why didn't you show us something that works, right? This is not because these people are stupid, or you guys are stupid who've pitched there. The problem is that here in Europe, we actually have very, very little product and business skills, right? We don't have many companies locally that locally develop that kind of products, that kind of business processes. If you go to Silicon Valley, you see a lot of it, but in places like Poland or Bulgaria or Ukraine or wherever here in Eastern Europe, very, very few people have actually access to it. So we, as investors, we have to help people educate themselves. People that are pitching today and will be pitching tomorrow, and at all these events that are happening, they say these things not because they don't know it, but because they don't have that exposure to that experience. So we have to help people get that experience. That experience really is concentrated in places like Silicon Valley. It's not only Silicon Valley, but it's mostly there. We have to help create communities. If you guys don't know this book, this is a wonderful book. It was written already like 2-3 years ago, but it's like a cornerstone Bible on how to help create communities. It's written by a guy called Brad Feld, who's a very successful investor in the United States. And this book kind of shows how successful communities were built based on examples. He talks about Boulder, Colorado, where he lives. He talks about places like Tel Aviv, like like the Silicon Valley, where it's proven to have worked. One of the kind of countercultural, counterintuitive conclusions for us, now this is a complicated scheme, but it's in the book, so if you get the book, you can see it, is that basically communities are not led by investors or by the government people in suits or by professors. They're actually led by entrepreneurs, right? So in doing this, investors actually have to empower entrepreneurs to set up the community. And then, once again, in Europe, it's not how we used to think, because we're used to thinking that a community is organized by someone formal, official. Doesn't work like that. Now, the second thing is we have to, and this is kind of a deep philosophical thing, we have to deal with throwaways. Those of you who are Ukrainian know this photograph because it's a photograph from Ukraine. This is a member of parliament who was thrown in the garbage after the changes that occurred earlier this year. So throwaways, here's the thing. It's actually a concept that I learned recently, something that I was thinking about a lot, but I didn't know the good word for it. And a friend of mine in Silicon Valley, we were having coffee, and she asked me how many good companies do you know, Max, in Bulgaria, let's say? And I said, well, maybe 3 or 4 or 5. And then she went like, so how many of them are throwaways? I'm like, what are throwaways? Oh, they're just startups that, help founders get better in life, like grow personally, not going anywhere. This is something we see a lot. And, as investors, it takes time to learn dealing with it. When you have really smart people coming up, pitching to you, interesting idea, good product, or good product idea, interesting, they answer all the right things about the business part, the distribution part. Very often it's still, the likelihood of them getting it right and actually making great company are very small. But even when you know that, you still have to support those people. And that's kind of the tricky thing, because you can't make money on them right now, but maybe that will be the person that in 2 or 3 attempts, or maybe after 10 attempts, after 10 years, or after 20 years, will actually build a great company. However, what also happens is that a lot of people go into startups because that's the cool new thing to do, right? It's like the garage bands of 60s, 70s, 80s, actually 90s as well. So when I was a little kid, and when many of you were little kids, it was really cool to play in a band. Remember all the movies, like the cool teenagers that were always playing in a band, right? Right now, it's becoming startups, and we have to face this reality that a lot of people that we see pitching to us are actually throwaways because they're doing it because it's cool. I have noticed this myself in my own practice in Bulgaria very many times. We've had cool founders come up with cool ideas, and then later on they would become, public speakers, public personalities. One of them became a TV host. One of them got married to a famous, supermodel. That's okay. That's okay, but we have to see those stories, right? So we, as investors, we have to try to differentiate between the people that are, going nowhere, but might create a great company in 10 years, and the people that are going nowhere but will get married to a supermodel, right? Not invest in the latter one. The thing is, as I already said, that startups are the engine of social change, right? Like the hippie movement was in the 60s, 70s. This right now is what separates the old class from the new class. And you have a lot of really good people doing startups that will actually end up doing other great things, but not startups. Now, another, third thing what we have to keep in mind is the duality of markets. This is a kind of also a tough concept. Thing is that, as in the venture business, it makes sense to go big, right? We say go big or go home, right? In reality, we all live in relatively small markets that might actually be big enough for some things. Like Poland is actually a very good example of this. In our industry, a lot of people compare negatively to Poland. They say, well, it's a typical Polish problem. They're actually not very big, but they're just big enough to do a decent exit on that local market with some kind of e-commerce or some kind of marketplace or something. So, yeah, go after the Polish market. And then many other VCs will go like, no, bullshit, it's small. Like 40 million people, it's nothing. In reality, you can do both. I've had successful stories in my personal experience where for instance, we recently did a deal in Bulgaria where we invested in a restaurant, how do you call that? Food delivery company, right? It's like one of those competitors of Foodpanda. Or Delivery Hero. Local one, they have like big market share. And they just entered a new adjacent market, which is Romania, and they're doing very well. And they probably will be acquired, and they probably will make money. So as an investor, you have to kind of support those stories, but at the same time, that what you actually want to do is like the next Skype, or the next Prezi, or something next big that can come out of Eastern Europe. And both things are valid. And you probably have to specialize. As you probably know, just to give you guys examples, of Polish companies. Who knows risk here? You guys know it, right? Anyone work there? No? This is a very cool company. A very good friend of mine from Israel works with them, and I got to know them. Really cool company. They're very successful. This is probably a good company to invest in Poland. This company will never be able to answer the questions, how big are your market? How are you going to kill Google? How are you going to become the next Facebook or something? This is just a cool company that sells clothes, but they're very good. At the same time, you have companies like this. This is Estimate, another great Polish company. And this one is actually going global, and they're doing very, very good. The truth is that both companies are worth supporting, but it takes very different skills and expertise. As I already told you, this is how the world looks like for us, right? This is the world by markets. The only really good markets worth going after are United States, China, Japan, maybe India. As you can see, Europe is not so small, but it's very, very fragmented. I've had this problem in my own first business. We did it in the Netherlands. As you can see here, the Netherlands, if you know where it is, it's left of Germany. It's about the same size as Poland, right? It's not a small market, but at the same time, it's definitely not global. And what we figured out with my first business was that we made it work in the Netherlands. We had a decent market share. We made some. We were making money. It was costing us more to do than we actually spent on it, but at the same time, we knew that the moment we tried to go, for instance, to Belgium, which is next door country, next door neighbor, same language, Dutch, right? We figured out, oh shit, the whole market works differently there. Like there is no market for what we do, or if there is a market, we have to completely redevelop it and completely customer develop it again. That's the problem of Europe. So Europe is big. When if you go to the website of the European Union or the European Union Twitter account, they'll say things like, yeah, we're twice bigger than the US and our total market is so much bigger and better, but it's very, very fragmented. The way people buy stuff in Poland, in the Netherlands, in Bulgaria, in Serbia, or wherever, is completely different. And it's hard. If you have developed it once, you'll have to develop it again and again for every single market. So once again, you can do it. You can be this kind of business, but the real gains are here. And number 4, finally, the thing that we have to do as investors is making connections. It sounds very simple. It sounds maybe corny even for you guys, but it's not very easy because once again, the mindsets are different. The way we see problems are different. People make fun of this, right? Every time, I've been taking groups of entrepreneurs to Silicon Valley from Bulgaria, from the Balkans. Every time you're there, you meet a lot of people traveling. It's a place where everyone from the whole world goes to. It's like pilgrimage, like going to Mecca, right? And people say, it's Silicon Valley tourism. Ha ha ha. You go there, you get excited, you come back, you start crying, and nothing happens. So you guys recognize it. It's important, but it's not just that, right? I think that people should actually do it more and more. And for instance, if you get the chance and if you haven't been there, go. If you've been there, go again. It's important to get connected. It's actually more than just the tourism. Tourism is an important first step. It's about making sure that these skills, we talked about the product skills, the business skills. It's important that these skills get planted elsewhere, that we do this cross-insemination of these skills. Remember, personal networks are super important. The networks that you built up. You all know this story. You probably know these individual stories very well. PayPal, was a cool company, and out of that group of people, came out a huge number of really, really successful companies, investment funds companies, like Square, like YouTube, like 500 Startups. It all came out of a group of people that was involved with PayPal 15 years ago. So being part of such a story is really important. Here in Poland, you have champions of your own, right? We just talked about them. Here they are. Estimate. If you guys rally around a local champion and you do stuff with them, you get a job there, you do a project for them, you help them out with something, chances are that maybe 15 years from now, you'll get to found the next multi-billion-dollar company because you were actually part of the great Estimate story. That's how you got to see it. Really important to create those connections. The building of networks is not something that happens in one-way street, right? You're going to Silicon Valley, let's say, and then everyone there is very friendly but very non-committal to you. It actually takes some time to establish something that is larger than the sum of its parts, right? This is it's a controversial thing. This is how Captain Cook, landed somewhere in in Australia or New Guinea or wherever he went. It was not very friendly. A bunch of white guys come on a boat. A bunch of black guys throw stones at them. But eventually, when cultures combine, great things are created. You have President Obama, right? A mix of cultures that can actually become a symbol of hope and change for the world. So to conclude, an investor is much more than just someone who writes a check, right? And this is something we have to keep in mind. We are in a very, very early stage. We are very comparable, what we do in this market to what I told you about Stanford University. You're just creating a platform where maybe in 10 or 15 years, the next Google can come out. To be honest, it's not maybe, it's very likely that it will. That's where all the numbers are pointing, but we just have to be patient and we have to do the right stuff. So with this, keep in mind, it's entrepreneurs first. This is famous story. It became famous because of an oatmeal comic. You've probably seen it about Tesla and Edison. It's not actually that simple, but the story is that Edison was like a big bad investor, and he stole Tesla's ideas, and he didn't give him money. And then Tesla was a poor, brilliant person who died, in poverty, and Edison became filthy rich. And when you go to school now, you hear about Edison, you never hear about Tesla. Although that story is not entirely true, but some elements of it are. You got to help guys like Tesla, right? So this is kind of the key thing that I'd like to transfer from my own experience. It's not easy. The whole thing is it's very Spartan. The whole battle of startups, investing in startups, growing companies, it's not comfortable. It's not something you want to do because that's the cool life. Then you're a throwaway. The real people are the ones that really push forward. So with this is me again. Follow me on Twitter. I'm around here today. Tomorrow we have a track together with my partners from CCC Startups. We have a whole track here called the Startup Adventure Track. So we'll be talking more about this. We have a couple of panels, a couple of really cool presentations, and looking forward to learning more about you. Thank you. That was quick. That was quick. So, anyone questions? Yeah, sure. There you go. There's another mic.
My name is Piotr Saha. I'm running one of the startups. I was wondering whether you are approaching the new startup, how you are evaluating things at the beginning. What is the, let's say, reasonable outcome to share the something between you and the startup owner or the people?
You mean the shares?
Yeah.
There are market standards for that, right? If you're raising seed, then you should, give a little stake, not more than 10%. Usually, there's no point to negotiate that, if you ask me. The best thing, as you probably know, is to do a convertible note. I don't know if the Polish law allows this. This is definitely the world practice, and you see more and more European investors doing it, even if their national jurisdiction doesn't support it. That's what we did in Bulgaria, for instance, where in Bulgaria, if you have a convertible note, it doesn't mean anything, but it's still, it's something we do because we want to set an example. So it's very simple. If someone wants more than 10% of the first investment, or let's say 20% for a more serious investment from you, it means they're a fraud.
Thanks.
Another questions?
Yeah, Sparta, airplanes. Any questions?
Hi, I'm Jacob. Do you have a favorite startup that you invested in right now?
A favorite one that I invested in?
Yeah.
That's hard to say. They're all my favorite. All the startups that I've been involved in are my babies. There's a cool company that we invested in last year with a couple of partners in Bulgaria. It's called Flips. It's a mobile app that allows you to stream video to smart TVs. So you walk into a room with a smart television, like this one, for instance. That's probably a smart TV, and you just fire the app, and any kind of video automatically goes there. It's pretty cool. 10 million people installed it. 3 million people are using it. It's quite okay. It's still not there. It's still there's no guarantee that it will be a success, but it's moving. Yeah. Anything else? Anyone? No? Okay. So have fun, guys, and I'll see you around. Thank you.
Thank you very much.